the 50th anniversary of hip-hop.
More than a musical genre, it's a global phenomenon. Business, sport, fashion, politics. Hip-hop influences everything. We're in New York to trace its journey from the streets of 1970s the Bronx to becoming the most popular and lucrative music genre in the world. In this show, we meet the godfather of hip-hop, Grandmaster Flash, and we'll visit the world's first hip-hop museum. Let's start at the official birthplace of hip-hop, right here in this apartment building in the Bronx, and the man credited with creating it. 1520 Sedgwick Avenue. It was here on the 11th of August 1973 that it all began. Jamaican-American DJ Clive Campbell, nicknamed DJ Coolhead because of his Herculean sporty build, was 18. He held a back-to-school party for his older sister. Herc spun hard funk tracks like James Brown, Aretha Franklin and the Meters. Then he tried something new. Noticing that the energy on the dance floor hit a peak when the singing stopped and there was just instrumental, he came up with an idea that would become the basis of hip-hop, the merry-go-round. Behind two turntables with two identical records, he played just the breaks, mixing between them to create a continuous rhythm. It became one of the greatest musical innovations of the 20th century. Called breakbeat, it blew up in the clubs and combined with the emerging art forms of MCing, graffiti tagging and breakdancing, hip-hop was born. So the story of hip-hop began with DJ Coolhead. His new style quickly conquered the 1970s block parties of the Bronx in New York. But like every revolution, he wasn't the only key player. Let's go meet one of the genre's forefathers.
I've been called Tuscanini. I've been called scientist. I've been called lots of wonderful things. As one of the architects of this hip-hop culture, first DJ to make the turntable an instrument, one of the godfathers of this culture. My name is Grandmaster Flash.
Did you ever imagine that the music you created would be so revolutionary, so successful half a century on?
To answer that question, this was recreation for us. In the 70s, the Goliath, the Godzilla was disco. Like, that was the big thing, that we were just this little embryo, you know, just pretty much just building from there. That's how I see it, as a movement, a Bronx movement. The Bronx, I call it like a blank canvas, musically speaking, because it allowed people like myself, Bambaataa, Kool Herc, DJ Breakout. It was kind of four of us that kind of had our own territories in the Bronx. Never in my wildest dreams that me doing this particular DJ style, which made it possible for the rapper to speak on the better music, would be what it is today.
Grandmaster Flash created a DJ technique called the quick mix theory. It gave birth to cutting and scratching. He gets behind his decks in his Bronx studio to give us a demo.
To every great song, there's a great part. What I did is, when I was doing my record shopping, whether it was pop, rock, jazz, blues, funk, disco, R&B, alternative Caribbean, I would try to find that drum breakdown that was at least 4 bars. Because if I can take 4 bars and take 4 bars, which is 10 seconds, and make it 10 minutes seamlessly, not a breaker. The breaker could do what he does, his routine. And the speaker, the MC, the rapper, now has a bed of music to talk on. Let's do it. Watch the line. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm gonna let 4 bars of this go. And then I'm gonna wait for this to go to the bad part, push this one, then I'm gonna come over here, and I'm gonna rewind it 6 times. I wanted people to dance because in my mind, as a kid, this is the best part of the record. And I remember my mother's house parties, they were dancing. The backsides was moving. I wanted to see many backsides moving.
Why was it so revolutionary?
I come from a time of nothing. There were no samplers, no hardware, no computers, no social media, no studios, no engineers, nothing. Just 2 copies of the same song. And that's what makes it so groundbreaking. And then eventually I put a microphone on the other side of the table just to see if someone can talk on this. Many people failed, but this one person who became my best friend at that time was Keith Wiggins, known as Cowboy.
One of the first MCs, Cowboy is credited with inventing the term hip-hop. In the late 70s, together with Flash and 3 others, they formed the group Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5.
As a toddler, my dad was a collector of records. When he wasn't around, I would try to go do the same process, you know, sneak into the closet. I think the fatal flaw to it, I didn't know how to put the record back in the same place. So in respect to this interview, I'll just say I got reprimanded. So for me, if I wasn't able to touch the stereo in the house, I had to eventually, in my teenage years, find parts. So behind 2730 Dewey Avenue in the Throgs Neck project in the Bronx, there was a junkyard. So from there, it's kind of like where I got my start, and I would drag this stuff into the house. Then I started unscrewing the back of my sister's hair dryers, the stereo in the living room, the television, just trying to figure out how and why it's doing what it was doing. Once I started to understand that, now I was able to sort of start building my own stuff. So when I started getting junk, now I understand how to somewhat put together a makeshift sound system that sounded quite disgusting, but it was pretty cool for me.
History remembers the South Bronx in the 1970s as an urban catastrophe, the ground zero of a city in crisis. Unemployment and poverty was sky high, as was crime. But for Grandmaster Flash, it was something else.
It was almost like a village, I'd say. I can remember doing the block parties back then, and what was really cool about it is I got to know my fans, but then I also got to know my fans' parents, because they would come to the block parties and they would almost make me responsible to make sure my child got home. It was a pretty special time back then because, you know, I'm still, you know, I'm a teenager, but I'm still in search of. I'm still trying to find that part on the record. And I think the best part of my collection probably was from parents giving me their records in the closet, probably.
So hip-hop began to make its way out of the Bronx. In 1979, Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight was the first rap played on the radio. Run DMC was on MTV. LL Cool J rapped about romance, and Public Enemy used hip-hop to get a political message across. Young black Americans finally had a voice. In 1982, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious 5 released The Message with a searing social commentary.
When did you realise you were making history?
I didn't. I think I realized I made history is maybe recently. I probably realized is when it went from little business in the park to when record companies was coming into the Bronx looking for us. What I used to get my rump tanned for, and in my teenage years, of putting my fingertips on the record and extracting just that one particular area, I can go from New York to Japan, and I would see them doing this. When I travel, I tour the world, I see this everywhere. Whether they're playing a rap record or playing a funk record or they're playing a disco record or R&B record, it's pretty humbling. It's like, wow. Because the whole thing could have missed. People could have said, I hate that.
In 2007, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five were the first hip-hop act to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Every breakdancer, every graffiti artist, every MC, every DJ, we here!
This person called me on a Sunday, and they says, Flash, you're in. 2 years prior, we were told we were going to be in, so I didn't personally believe it. 7 o'clock in the morning, phone's ringing up the hook. Turn on the TV, turn on the TV, turn on any channel you want, 2, 5, 7, and we was in. I think my most exciting moment to that was, one, I didn't think our genre of music wasn't allowed in there, maybe. And then the coolest thing was when a gentleman walked up alongside of me holding his phone. What are you doing here? He said, hey, what's up, Flash? Oh, I'm getting ready to go and say some things about you. His name was Jay-Z. That was pretty cool to be inducted by him. He's a great man.
So in 2007, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame welcomed its first hip-hop act. That key part of hip-hop's history is part of its long journey to becoming a billion-dollar art form. The story will soon be honoured in the Universal Hip-Hop Museum, due to open in the Bronx next year.
Welcome to the Universal Hip-Hop Museum. This is our sneak preview exhibit.
We visit this temporary exhibit across the road from the building site, which focuses on the 1980s, or the golden era.
All right, this throne right here belonged to the legend himself, Slick Rick. One of the greatest storytellers in hip-hop rocked the stages with this exact throne. The bike was recently donated to us by an artist that recently passed away. So rest in peace to Coolio. Right? If you don't know who Coolio is, he has one of the greatest songs of all time, Gangsta's Paradise.
I'm an educated fool with money on my mind. Got my tin in my hand and a gleam in my eye.
The golden era, 1986 to 1990. This is an era where we are starting to innovate our sound, our lyrics, and become the culture that we love. This time period, a social conscious movement was really happening.
They even had it on the news.
Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the hype.
Public Enemy jacket that was worn by one of the security guard people that would be on stage with them. Just shows you that Public Enemy was that group that was really speaking truth to power. Another group that was speaking truth to power were the X-Clan, right? They were activists. There was a lot of drug problems in our communities all around the world, especially in the United States. And this group did activism work in their communities where they said enough is enough. All right, so this is gonna be a 3-minute light show music experience that I will begin in 3, 2, 1. Enjoy. There we go. Don't go fast, go very, very slow. All right, so go slow.
Hip-hop is really important because it gave way to a lot of different types of music that we see today. I think people don't always remember that, like, when hip-hop started, it had a lot of, like, political implications, especially, like, Black Power movement and Civil Rights movement.
Kind of put it in a museum and have everybody respect it and be a national museum. It's important, and in the Bronx, which hosts a lot of Black and Latino history.
I think it's a wonderful experience. It's long overdue that there's a museum dedicated to hip-hop, the cultural movement, the music, all of it.
This culture really took over the world, took over the universe. From the Bronx to Japan, no matter, we really want to tell everybody's story.
The museum brings all the struggle, taking something from like nothing. It's now become mainstream. Everybody in the world is finally interested. It's like, okay, it's about time.
5 decades after its birth, the DJs, rappers, breakdancers and graffiti artists of hip-hop culture will finally be honoured for creating an art form that changed history, gave disadvantaged people of colour a platform, and influences to this day the world you and I live in. In the next instalment of this series on the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, we look at women's role in this art form that changed the world.
I almost had it.